everybody, welcome back to Connerty Meadows Farm. For those of you that don't know, my name is Ricky. And today you're gonna see behind me here a big old mass of mess, really. When we first moved to this property almost 4 years ago, I discovered one single tree back here and I figured out that it was elderberry tree. And since then, I have been carefully propagating this plant in other places on our property, as well as taking clippings and gifting them to other people locally within this garden group. So today, let's go over how you can identify that this is in fact an elderberry and what we can do to transplant it. Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you is you can see this is my barn. That's the roof. And unfortunately, the snow all falls off the barn and it busts my elderberry tree here quite a lot. Now, again, I did not plant this tree here. This was here like this when we arrived and I've just worked at it. Now, as I take clippings and cuttings and dig up babies from this, I have been moving them to another place on my property. All right, so let's go over how in the wintertime you can figure out if you have an elderberry tree on your property or not. So one of the first things that you're gonna notice about this tree is it has all of this rough, sort of like looking bumps to it. And this is very normal for an elderberry tree. The next thing that is going to tell you that is an elderberry tree is, unlike a lot of trees, its buds are side by side. So these buds are facing this direction. And if we move up the tree, you'll see these next set of buds are facing the opposite direction. And as we keep moving up this branch, these next set of buds are again facing the opposite direction. Buds are always tight together on an elderberry tree, and they always alternate the sides that they're on. So in this instance, you can see this way, and then we follow it down, and they're on another direction. And if we follow this down and I keep my hand straight, they're on the opposite direction. So again, opposite direction. If I go straight up, my hand should touch the bud. Yep, now we'll skip this bud. We're gonna go straight up. There's some crossing happening there, so I'm gonna have to trim there. And these ones are going on the opposite side. So that is one way you can tell. If I was to keep following this up, there we go. See, the buds are gonna touch my finger, whereas down here, my finger slides through them. Normally, when you're taking elderberry clippings, you want to take the clippings starting in January and February, because by March, like we are right now, they're actually already starting to bud. They're one of the first trees that you're going to have that are actually producing buds. So I did have, when we were showing you this branch, we have some crossover here. So one of these is getting damaged. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you how we're going to take some clippings from this. And then a little later in the spring, I will finish this video and I will show you how we can plant these clippings. So this was the one we were looking at here. And you can see that there is some damage happening by these two rubbing together. This one was actually behind this one, and so that we were getting some damage there. So this one is actually a much tinier branch than this one here. And the buds on this one are nice and healthy, and this one not so much. So we're actually gonna clip this one because it is the healthiest. And then we can make some clippings from this one to plant. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is to get our trusty clippers here. These have been disinfected. I don't want to spread any diseases to anything. And we are going to come down here to the base, and I am going to cut on a bit of an angle. And then we have our first clipping. I'm gonna go ahead and find any more that are crossing, and we're gonna clip them so that we can try to make this tree as healthy as possible. Now, like I said, the unfortunate thing with this tree is it has been very, very beat up by the snow falling down. And our elevator goes in that door. So we end up having the elevator here in the summertime as well. And you can see the snow has just completely mangled these bushes. But I have slowly started transplanting these, and if at some point eventually these trees do get completely killed off, it's okay because I do have this now on other parts of the property. You can see we've got some nice buds coming in. Sorry, it's the focus here. There we go. See, we've got some nice buds coming in on this tree, so it's still, regardless of the fact that it got pretty beat up, it's still pretty healthy. Well, hello, Ash. So currently right now with this tree, I'm really not going to cut a whole lot more. I'm just going to check for any branches rubbing. I'll trim them back and we'll use the cuttings, but I'm trying not to cut too much of this tree just because it has been so obliterated by the snow this winter. See here, this branch and this branch are rubbing, and this branch is a pretty big one. It doesn't actually look super healthy, but the small branch it is rubbing on looks pretty good and will make a really good clipping. And there we go. Oh my goodness. Hello, Ash. What are you doing, buddy? He's my garden kitten. Well, he's not a kitten anymore. My garden buddy. And so here we are working in what I would still call gardening, and he's along for the ride. Hey, buddy. So let's talk about how we are going to trim these up. So here at the bottom, where we cut it, is our first set of buds. We have a second set of buds here, and we have a third set of buds here. Now, I always like to make sure that I plant with 3 sets. These two down here are pretty close together, so I'm not going to count them as 2 separate ones. And the other thing you're going to need to make sure is that you're green inside. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. Okay, so you can see that this isn't a lot. This is definitely alive. It's not a dead one. So let's count this as 1, 2, and the third bud at the top. Some people just like to do 2 tops. I like to do 3. So that's why we're going to do 1, 2, 3. This will be our third top. So we're going to cut on an angle just ahead of that. And that is 1 plant to plant. Now, this one, now that we cut close to the top, so what you would do is cut pretty close to the top of the bud, which is what I did with this one. So you can see we have the bud there, and then we cut, which then means there's a gap between this cut and here. So I'm actually just going to cut here and get rid of this down here. Okay, so we don't need that. And so now we have 1 bud, 2 bud, 3 bud. And we have 2 with, well, this one has 4, 3 to 4 buds. And I'm going to put these in my bucket outside, and they will be gifted to some people within our gardeners group, our local gardeners group. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one. 1 bud, 2 bud. The third bud is here. So we're going to cut again on an angle just above that bud there. That means this one is ready to be planted. And then this one is left with 1 bud, 2 bud, 3 bud. And again, we have this extra bit of space down here, and we're going to clip and get rid of that. So what happens is in the spring, we're literally going to just take this, shove it straight down into the ground, and this bottom bud will actually grow roots as well as in the bottom green part here. So that is how you're going to get new clippings or growings from this. Now the other one that we cut, this one here, it's a little bit of a weird shape. And I don't know that it's alive all the way up. Like, I can tell that bud's alive because it's got some green on it. So I'm actually just going to snip it on top of this bud. Now you can see how that's brown? That means the top part of this one was actually not alive, but the bottom part of this one is still alive. So this one will make a good cutting, and we will put it in the pail. Currently, these are just going to reside outside on my deck in this pail because I've told people within the local gardener group that it's here. And then I have some instructions on a couple of them, along with where you can find us. All right, I'll see you back here in the spring and I'll show you how to plant some of those. All right, I said I'd come back once I could work the ground. So the ground is soft now. It's actually ridiculously hot today, which I'm not complaining. But I have all of my elderberry clippings, and I have one of them that has a label on them because I brought a bunch of these to the seed swap. Anyway, after the snow started to melt, I found a whole bunch more that were broken. So I went ahead and I cut them up, and I'm going to show you what we do with them. It's actually really, really simple. That is one I planted when we first moved in. And if you look down this line here, you will see a whole bunch of sticks. Those are not just elderberry, but there is also sunflower mixed in there. And so to plant these, it's really complicated. It's not actually. So I know which is the top, which is the bottom, and we're just literally gonna go ahead. Now, before I put it in, this bottom part here, where my baby finger is, we want to make sure that part gets down into the ground, because not only are they going to grow roots from the bottom, they're going to grow roots from there. And Ash, always my garden buddy, and we're just going to push that down into the ground. And literally, that's it. Now, some of these will actually go ahead and grow foliage this year, and some of them might actually die. And don't pull them out if they die, because they might actually grow roots for you, and then the following year they will produce offshoots off the side of it. That's it. That's all I gotta do. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna plant the rest of these. You can see one here has the side buds on it. So I need to make sure I get that one in the ground right away. I'm just gonna push it in. And that's it. That's all that it takes. And this whole line of elderberries, I planted that way. I have all these garden buddies. So this is one that I planted, and Goocher's showing you here. You can see this one is alive and already starting to put out little shoots. And that's all I did to plant all of these. Was I literally, this one was the top of a tree branch that broke. I shoved it in the ground last year, and this year it's got sprouts. And another one I shoved in the ground last year, and there's its sprouts. So, you know, this works. This one I shoved in the ground last year. Now, this one looks like it's had some, I would say, mice or rabbits or something chewing on it. I don't know if this one's gonna make it. As of right now, it has sprouts, but that's fully ringed. When something's fully ringed, they often don't make a comeback, so I need to keep an eye on that one. This one made me laugh the most though. Like, this thing is huge. And it had broken off the tree, and I thought, I have nothing to lose. And I shoved it in the ground 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, I guess. And last year, this thing gave me berries. Now, the original branches that were on it, this one, these ones, all died off. But it grew all of these new shoots, and it's all of these new shoots that are giving new life. So I may go in this year and cut some of this dead stuff out, but I was actually laughing because I never thought a tree with that, like a branch with that big of a base would live, but it did. So I count on at least 50% survival rate. You definitely can have more than 50% survival rate. I think the first year I probably was at 60 or 70%, but then we had a really bad drought that year, and watering these was not the priority when I have animals to worry about. So these kind of got ignored. Each year I try to add any that break off of our main one that we found behind the barn when we moved in. So it's just not in a really good location. Every time stuff slides off of the roof of the steel barn, it's in the back of the barn, so you can't really see it, but it slides off the roof and the snow just crushes it. And this winter we had ice storms and we had a lot of snow, and it just annihilated my tree. So that's why I trimmed up a lot. I gave a lot away at seed swaps. I've given a lot away within my gardening group. I'm not charging for these because I want other people to have the benefit from them. And then any that didn't get claimed, I'm putting here along the roadway. And this is eventually, hopefully, going to give us a little bit of privacy, so that, not that we mind per se, but it's a really big area of road front. And these can grow to be up to 12 feet tall. So eventually, down the line, these are going to give us some privacy as well as food. And I'm hoping that on the roadside, I'll have enough that we'll be able to share with people that want to come and pick. I'll offer for people to pick from them if they want. Of course, this is going to be years down the road. Like, I think I got from this big one here, maybe 6 or 7 clusters, so not a huge amount. Actually, there was a few, I think maybe 2 or 3 other bushes that gave me a couple clusters as well. So right now, my main tree is still behind the barn, and that's the one that we get the most fruit out of. But it's nice to know eventually this is what we can do. But honestly, that is just how easy it is to get an elderberry clipping and shove it in the ground. You don't need to put rooting hormone. You don't need to do any of that extra stuff. Get it in the ground, get it watered, keep it watered. They do like a little bit of wet feet. So if you have like a low-lying spot or a spot that's a little bit damper, they'll do happier there. That's kind of why we put them on the edge of the road, all the runoff and stuff, as well as for the privacy factor. But like, they're so easy. Everybody needs to have elderberries. Order some clippings, find someone that has clippings. They're really easy to plant. Trying to shoot a YouTube video, and these two are all over my feet in the garden. These two are always my garden buddies, him especially. They love it when I'm outside in the garden. You guys are hilarious. So this is a stick I stuck in the ground last year, and while it stayed alive last year, obviously nothing's come back on it this year. But if you look beside it, right here, this is a new elderberry shoot that has come up from the roots of this one. And the same thing over here. There's the shoot, there's the stick. That one got ringed by rabbits. And here as well, there's the shoot, there's the stick. It's really hard not to snuggle him, I'm not gonna lie. He's so fun. All right, so here we go. Look at all the flowers on that one. And then all the way down this strip of unmowed area is full of baby elderberries. So the elderberries, see the flowers coming in, that's a new elderberry shoot. This one's a new elderberry shoot. Just trying to see, oh, there's a new one, there's a new one. Trying to see if I can show you what happens when you plant elderberry with the stick. So I throw the sticks in the ground. Oh, here we go. So this is a new stick this year. It got busted off the back of the barn where my elderberry tree is this past winter. I stuck it in the ground and it has all of these new buds on it. So what'll happen is next year, this stick will actually wither up and die like this stick here has. But what will happen is because it stayed alive through the summer, it'll send out some shoots from its roots, and this will become a new elderberry tree. So while this one right now is alive in its stick form, this will die off and it won't produce anything on it next year. But what it will do is send off new shoots. So these 2 shoots are actually from this stick, which means I can probably pull this one completely out of here because it's kind of not great looking. So this one, I put the stick in the ground this year. There it is. And this stick was last year, and there's its new shoot. Now that said, obviously I do have some that when I stick it in the ground the following year, it does come back, but it is not the norm for it to come back. It is the abnormal to have that happen, but it's great when it does. This is the elderberry tree back behind our barn. We are in different stages, so we have some really big with flowers, and then we've got some up here that are starting to die back and form the berries. And you can see there's all different stages up through there. So the brown ones are forming berries. And then the actual original main tree here has berries on it. We also have a few little friends in there, which we're happy to leave. So I'm gonna actually go ahead and these batch on the main tree trunk, which is there. I'm gonna let the birds have that because it's still pretty early in the season. And then there's so many at this flowering stage that we will have those ones, and I will dehydrate them and save them for elderberry syrup. So you can see, the thing is, every time the snow or ice falls off the roof and damages them, I go and I plant them in our row, as you've seen, but it triggers them to send off more shoots. So now, what was just a single tree when we first moved in 3 years ago has become this massive amount of shoots. My horse in the way. And that's what it looks like. So I regularly dig up to sell or give away a lot of the baby trees. So the difference, you can see, this is a fresh elderberry. It's green, it's not brown. All of these are fresh ones. If you look here, the original rootstock is brown. And coming off the original rootstock, so this is all this year's growth. Same with this one. So all of this new growth is this green color. And if you look closely, so one thing that elderberry you can tell is you get the bumpy ridges. And on the green ones, if you look really carefully, you can see the start of the bumpy ridges. We've reached the point in the season where the elderberries are starting to be ready. And one of the ways that you can tell that they're starting to be ready, let me show you this bush up here. So even though there's some greenish and red ones on there, you can see there's actually a lot of berries missing on this umbrella. And that would be the ripe berries, and the birds are getting to them. Now, I could net this if I wanted to, since this is one of the ones that I planted here, so it's a smaller bush. It's not my 12-foot high tree. But I am going to be dehydrating all of these berries to make elderberry juice through the winter. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pick these now. And what I do to pick them is I have a trusty pail, and this one is stainless steel. And I have a pair of pruning scissors. And then I just come in and I can prune my bush, and I'm just gonna prune it straight into the pail. So that's all I'm gonna do. Now you'll notice this bush here, there's some green ones and stuff in there. When I go in to clean them, I actually, I'll pick those out after. So they're not going to stay, but it's still worth it for me to clip this. I'd rather clip it and get it than lose it all to the birds. And that's it for harvesting it. So I'm gonna go ahead, I have this bush, I have the little bush behind me, and then I have the big honkin' bushes behind the barn to do. So this bush here, the berries are still a little more light colored than I'd like, and there's a lot of little green ones. So I'm actually just gonna let this bush go, and the birds can plant if they want, I don't care. And then this bush that I showed you first, where the birds have already cleaned it out, I'm just gonna let it go. I don't mind sharing with the birds. I have lots of elderberry, I'm happy to share. When the whole rest of it is ripe, like this, I'm happy to let it go. The thing with elderberry is they're not gonna all ripen at the same time. So I just picked and cleaned that bush there, which is in there. And this little bush next to it, which is a younger plant, granted, has a few little ones in here, and this one unripe. Usually once you start harvesting your elderberry, you'll be harvesting them over a period of a week or two, because some of them will take longer to get ripe than others. Like, I may be able to come back and harvest the rest of those if the birds don't get to them. It'll just depend. This is another one of those sticks I stuck in the ground. This one was stuck in, I think this one's only 2 years old, and it's already producing elderberries. So it's pretty quick from the time of you sticking the stick in to them desperately doing their bid to produce fruit for you. We are the 3rd week of August here, and these guys, this is usually around the time here where I am in Ontario, Canada, when these guys are able to be harvested. So usually anywhere between the 2nd and the 4th week of August is when I harvest. Now it might be different where you are, but that is the time frame that I harvest. Now these elderberries are my more established ones, and by the looks of things, I am a few days late actually getting in here and collecting these guys. So this is how big the umbrella is on these guys. And as you can see, lots of empty spots. The birds have eaten quite a few of them. But I am going to pick what I can, and I still have lots left over from last year, so I don't mind sharing a little bit with the birds. Maybe I'll just make sure I come out here tomorrow and pick a few more. Like, they've actually picked some of these umbrellas like fully clean, so we'll just do our best. Win some, you lose some. We were really busy this past weekend, so I didn't get out. I knew I needed to, but life happens sometimes, and it's okay. And just to give you guys a little bit of an idea of height, that's our barn up there, and that little door that you can't really see is where we put our hay up. So oftentimes these bushes get squished by our elevator, and because of the year we've had so far, we actually haven't put hay in the barn, so they haven't been squished. And you can see there's quite a few on over there and up there. So I'm gonna harvest as much here as I can. Welcome to homesteading, when cows and goats are screaming and you're in the horse field harvesting elderberries. At this point, I've kind of collected all I can in this bucket. So before I bring it in with all of these extra twigs and sticks, I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to take some of these berries off. And for me, I just roll them between my thumb and they just come right off. Now when I get in the house, I will clean them better to get all the stems and stuff off. But for now, you just kind of, most of them will, at this point when they're super ripe like this, most of them, sorry about the cow, she's angry because she's not out on pasture today. Most of them will just roll, see, right off into your hands. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get all of this off. Okay, so my umbrella is clean. I can get rid of that one, and then I can start on the next one. So just the whole pail to do.
So this one, you can see there's definitely some green ones on there. So when I'm cleaning this one off, I'm just gonna kind of carefully go, and I'm just gonna avoid the green ones. That way I don't have to pick them out later. Otherwise I would actually have to pick all these ones out later. So I'm just gonna leave them. And these will just get tossed out onto the ground where the elderberries are, and the birds or ants or whoever else, some other wildlife of some sort, if they want the green ones, they can have the green ones. So I still might get like the odd green one in there, but for the most part I'm just trying to avoid getting the green ones in. Again, like I said, this is just a quick one. But yeah, they're the green ones off. Not really much left on this one. Hello, Red. My horse, because I'm using a pail, she thinks that perhaps, maybe, there might, on the off chance, be a treat in here. But there's no treat here. I'm just sitting outside where the elderberry plants are so I can do this. This one looks really good. Lots of nice berries on there. Hi, Red. That's my head that you're sniffing. Yes, it is. And there we go. Lots of good ones on there. But you see, they're pretty easy to get off. It didn't take very long to do an umbrella. I know a lot of people complain about taking elderberries off, but I find it pretty quick. I don't ever really have too much of a problem with it. It goes pretty fast. Hi, Red. This is all of the elderberries cleaned off. And this is what's left of them. But as you can see, there's still bits and pieces in here. So the next thing that I do is I will pour this pail of elderberries onto a cookie sheet, making it easier for me to pick through and clean that bit up. So I spent a few hours, I cleaned this all out. I've actually spread the elderberries between 2 cookie sheets, and I could put these in the dehydrator. I just find sometimes the fan, when they're dry, the berries blow everywhere. So I actually tend to leave them on the cookie sheet and put my oven on the warm setting, and then I just put them in the oven on the warm setting. So you can see I have both of them in there, and I'll leave them on the warm setting, which will dehydrate them until they're done, and then we can use them. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and we'll see you next time on the farm.